the open, high, low, and close, and the open, low, high, and close. Now, this is the basic anatomy of the candlesticks. Right? This is how candlesticks are formed. This is not new information. Everyone knows this. What matters is, how do you use this? How do you use this to predict a certain candle or the other, right? That is what we are going to say. Now, there are two main theories, which is each candle is divided into three parts. Right? Accumulation, manipulation, distribution. And the other one says each candle is divided into four parts. Right? Whichever one you want to believe in, it doesn't matter. What matters is, how do you apply it? How do you use it? I personally like to believe that they consist of three parts. So I like to see accumulation in one candle, manipulation in the second candle, and distribution in the third candle to the first candle. All right? If it takes a bit longer than three candles, so accumulation in one, then manipulation in two, or accumulation in two, manipulation, distribution, so be it. As we know, accumulation is the longest phase. Or you can also say accumulation, manipulation, distribution in two. Right? So realistically, what you're looking for is three higher time frame candles to trade. And I will delve into that a bit deeper. But for now, let's focus on the aspect of the open, the high, the low, and the close. Now, let's dissect the OLHC or OHLC. We have two fixed values, and we have two moving variable, continuously changing values. Right? So the open is fixed and the close is fixed. What varies is the high and the low. Right? I've mentioned before that each candle has three trades inside of it. So you got the open, the high, trade number one, trade number two, OTE, trade number three is the opposing end of the candle. Visualizing that is as follows. You got the open, opening range, remember? A high, breakdown, OTE, and low. So ideally, you're trying to trade a higher time frame candle with this premise in mind, right? Whether it's a daily candle, whether it's a weekly candle, there's a fixed opening time, right? And there's a fixed closing time of the candle. And there's a fixed midpoint time. Which is why you might have heard me tell you a lot of times, which is the high of the day until until New York. The low of the day is in until the NY session. right? The high is in until the NY session. Why? Because you might end up expecting a trending candle, but it is in fact the high of the day during the time, which is London. It declines and then it reverses instead of continuing and ends up being a choppy, ranging candle. So you're expecting expansion, right? But you got more accumulation. And this is a fun fact. The markets spend more than 70% of the time accumulating, which is why a common mistake, which you may have committed by yourself, is trying to enter a position and then holding on for too long and it comes back to your entry. Why did that happen? That happened because you were expecting expansion during an accumulation phase, right? So that is an important thing to keep in mind. More than 70%. Of the time, the candles or price is in an accumulation. Some assets more than others, but overall, it's more than 70% accumulation, which means you're going to spend most of the time waiting for the setup anyway. But, of course, we're trying to focus mainly on trying to get to predict or to participate in an expansion candle on the higher time frame. That's the goal, right? To simplify everything, right? To make it really nice and short and sweet and simple. All you're trying to do is enter up here. So the opening price, which is a fixed value, as soon as the fixed opening time provides you with the opening, right? So as soon as the Monday candle opens, you have the reference already, right? So the puzzle is already 50% solved. The open, the high, the low, and the close, right? You got the open and you got the close. All you have to do now is anticipate the high and the low. Doesn't have to be the absolute high, doesn't have to be the absolute low. If you can catch a high until half of the candle, or just this portion, right? I know one of my students, quote unquote, this is their model, which is catching this trade number 3. There's 1, there's 2, and there's 3. This is all they trade. So they let the whole thing play out, and they finally catch the final bounce off the range of the candle, right? Now a pause. If this is too advanced in your eyes, then you probably should put this aside, go and study a bit, and then come back to this later on, right? It'll make sense. For the rest of you, I'm sure, are following along as you should, because I had put as a prerequisite to be intermediate to advanced, right? For your own benefit. If you snuck in, whatever. But if you really want to make use of it, then a quick reminder that you should be of the 2 categories which I specified are allowed to enter. All right? Now, this whole thing, this open, high, low, and close, the two main candles we're trying to predict or play with are the daily and weekly range, right? Which is also why good old ICT says that his whole purpose is to try and predict the outcome of the weekly range. That is what one shot, one kill is. Remove, 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 remove. Now, to put it really, really extremely raw and just the bare bones idea is open, right? Accumulation, a little bit. Manipulation, and distribution. And every single one of those is done on purpose, by the way. Every single arrow you see is done on purpose, right? Open. Above the opening price of the candle you're trying to predict, daily, weekly, 4-hour, whatever. If you are bearish, you're waiting for a pop above the opening price. And here's the fun part. Into a previous high of the previous candle, which ideally coincides with a higher time frame key level. Right, twisted candle. A liquidity pool inside of a higher time frame PD array. Above the opening price of the candle you are trying to trade. From there you enter and you write it down to the opening price. The SR flip of the opening price and onto the rest of the duration of the candle, right? And of course it bounces off the lower end of the range, also off of a key level and a liquidity pool, right? Either an existing liquidity pool or a newly formed liquidity pool, right? That's the basic idea. Right, so if this is all you take from the whole lecture is open, rally above opening price, key level, decline, key level, that's it. Trade number 1, trade number 2, trade number 3, all right? If this is all you take from this, then I consider you a success. Now, let's go and see how this plays out on each candle, starting from the monthly, down to the weekly, down to the daily, down to the 4-hour for intraday, down to maybe the 1 hour. But for sure, the monthly, weekly, daily, and 4-hour. You can go below, of course. You can trade the 15-minute power of 3, but that's if you can't even trade the weekly, then what are you doing with the 15-minute, right? So let's get right into it. Let's start with the monthly power of 3, right?